Welcome back to PH.d TV, and today I'm going to talk about where I think the Marvel movies are. So a little background on why I actually really love these movies. I still try to keep up with them, but also so you know where my emotional attachment is with them. So I was actually middle school whenever the first Iron Man movie came out, if that kind of dates my age of where I am. And in middle school, before the first Iron Man movie came out, I was already a comic book nerd, or geek, however you want to say it. Because I remember every time I'd get allowance and I saved up enough, I would go to this place called Timmy Mac's Comics and I would buy comic books. And I loved reading growing up, but how I learned to read really was comics. Because I had pictures to kind of roll with, to also read the dialogue, and that's where I really got the idea of story through that medium. And then I would grow up watching the Fantastic Four movies with Michael Chiklis, Jessica Alba, Daredevil with Ben Affleck, and of course, back in 2002, the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. So all that being said, I grew up with comics, but in middle school, pre-Iron Man and Captain America, Thor, before any of that, I was a big comic book person, but also people in middle school are mean. And when I say people, I mean the kids are just, that's the mean phase. That's where they're trying to really see where you're at. So I got picked on a lot. I would show up wearing Superman shirts, Batman. I would also show up wearing Spider-Man shirts. I had my collection of graphic tees that I would go and say, you know what, this is me, this is what I like. But as a middle schooler, I was fragile. So I'm picked on all the time, but then Iron Man starring Robert Downey Jr. comes out, and here starts the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it today. Where people say it is by far the greatest universe of all time, aside from Star Wars, or they even make that argument to which one's which. And one of which, DC tried to even do by shotgunning all these movies, and now there's even a new DCU coming out. Marvel established what it was, and it became cool, and everything that I loved and was picked on for was cool. Therefore, these movies were a godsend to my ego at that time, realizing that I'm okay with liking what I like because it's cool. That sounds really bad, but when you're not being picked on for something you love, you have even a further appreciation for it than you already did. So I became that kid who would go see Iron Man 2 wearing an Iron Man shirt, Thor wearing a Thor shirt, Captain America wearing a Captain America shirt. I was that guy, opening night with a ticket, with my buddies, with whoever. I was there to see these movies and enjoy them. It was an experience. You'd show up and there'd be these theaters just fully packed of people cheering. I remember the first Iron Man movie, me and my mom went at the time because we had middle school, and we were sitting in one of the front rows, packed theater. My mom said she's never been in a theater that had been so packed at the time. I remember that. And there were people clapping and cheering when Tony Stark lands in the sand after escaping the tribe of terrorists who were keeping him building missiles. And we looked back thinking, this is the first time I've been in the theater so energetic with fun, adventure, and everyone's on the same page. So MCU goes, Avengers comes out by the time I'm in high school, and this is just blown out of proportion. And again, pretty much until Endgame came out, Avengers Endgame came out, I was there every single time, except for Ant-Man. I missed that one when it first came out. But I was there every single time to see these movies come out, without fail, every single time. And then they announced Disney Plus that there would be TV shows coming out, and I said one thing up front that has not necessarily proven to be true in the context of how I predicted it would happen, but it's definitely in that same page. So I said to every one of my friends who asked that opinion, because this was something me and all my boys were all about, talking about, saying, hey, what do y'all think how do you think this is gonna go? And I said, it is difficult enough in a good way to go to the movies every single time just to maintain the storyline. But what happens for the people who can't afford Disney Plus, doesn't have TV, doesn't have internet, or just doesn't have the capability of seeing these shows every single week, or however they would do them episodically at the time, and can they still catch up with the movies that release that they can go see? Or what if they watch the shows, but then you have to rely on a movie that you couldn't afford to go see, but you know what? Oh well, because now it's a TV show and you have to roll with it. It's just a lot of zigzagging in properties that don't necessarily align. So again, it wasn't so much that, because that was mainly based off the idea of affording what if people couldn't do one, they could do one but not the other. And I know that's depends on the situation style problem, predicament, however you want to phrase it. But what did happen was a little bit of the zigzag effect where it's like, I gotta go see the movie, gotta go see it in the, in the theater, or do I just wait till 3 months from now when it comes on Disney Plus, but there's that show I have to watch, but there's also that content I need to watch to understand that. And next thing you know, it became definitely, just from what the internet has said, I think we're all in agreement here for the most part, that it very much became quantity over quality. Even to a degree, I thought Endgame was great, was not as good as Infinity War, for the record, in my opinion, but it was still fantastic. But after that, they didn't know what to do. All of Phase 4, to me, was really setting the stage for future movies. That we introduced Thor's daughter, Hulk's son. There was no ultimate bad guy. Now, I do know they were doing Kang with Jonathan Majors, but there was that whole legal thing that I won't get into. But even then, Kang was not treated the way Thanos was to build up to who exactly they were trying to make as the big bad, like Thanos was. It was very much a closing of the original characters to make room for the new, but very unorganized in comparison to what the Marvel Cinematic Universe had originally been. So not only was it a culture shock of having to be at 5 different places to understand one storyline between TV shows and also the theater, if you decided to go to the theater, because you could just wait 3 months, it's gonna be on Disney Plus, but then at that point, are you missing anything? It became a headache and people stopped caring. And again, I do like these movies, but there did come a point for me where I started to say, I grew up with these movies. I am the prime audience of emotional baggage of wanting to love these movies. But even then, I don't think I've seen any of the new Marvel movies in theaters. I didn't go see Thor in theaters. I didn't go see the new the Marvels movies in theaters. I've seen some of the shows. I loved Loki. I actually thought Miss Marvel was okay. She-Hulk, I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed She-Hulk, but only because it was different. I didn't think it was anything groundbreaking. Thought the CGI was pretty critically bad for the most part.
You almost tasted that. Num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest. You ain't never gotta heat me up. I'm present.
But it did something different, but did nothing to progress a story other than here's She-Hulk. And with that being said, even further, I love Loki, but I didn't care to see the second season because I'm kind of dropping out loosely to the quantity over quality. Now, with the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming, and it being the only one Marvel movie to come out in a year, which is the first time they've only had one Marvel movie come out in a year since ever. I can't remember the last time it was just one. I'm actually excited to see if this is going to be a separation to what quality is. Because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was great, and Black Panther 2 was fine, but pretty much everything else to me was kind of copy-paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. So, and two, Ryan Reynolds, I think, is really becoming more of a businessman as much as he is an actor and producer of anything else. And I don't think, with how much he truly respects and loves the idea of Deadpool, bringing back Hugh Jackman after such a wonderful finish with Logan, I just don't envision them cashing in the money just to make money with this kind of property. And from what I understand in the rumors of everything, that this is going to reset a whole bunch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I am curious, and for the first time in a long time, I'm probably gonna go see this in theaters. Now, as an adult, I don't really have any t-shirts anymore that have a whole bunch of superheroes on them, but I'm still probably gonna show up opening night, jacked, ready to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, because for one, Wolverine's one of my top 3 favorite superheroes of all time, but also it's just the camaraderie, they're gonna bounce off each other, and it looks fun. But what happens after that? Because Marvel's canceled a whole lot of things. They've released the Fantastic Four cast, so we know that's coming, but we don't know really too much about it. I've heard that's gonna take place in the 60s, which I think is really cool, but you know what? That's different. And if it's different, I'm here for it. I would much rather have a movie that was different fail than to go watch another copy and paste movie that fails. Because I will at least respect the failure of someone who attempted something different, because at least I didn't waste my time seeing something I've already seen. So I do think right now the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in a very lull area where it doesn't know what it wants to be, and maybe they're using this time with Deadpool, Wolverine, the Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out to pause, to say, hey, if we're gonna reset this, what are we gonna do? Because what we're doing and realizing that we're doing is losing us money, losing us fans. And again, I am the prime example of someone who grew up with the original movies growing up, on top of the baggage of all the people they're bringing back. You know, like they're talking about bringing Jennifer Gardner back as Elektra for this Deadpool Wolverine movie, and that's awesome because I grew up with that one too. But I am the prime example of someone who you don't want to lose as an audience because you're copy and pasting. If I want copy and paste, I'll go rewatch the movies that I know I love when you were doing something different, because at least I know what to expect in context of the time that they came out. But one thing that I think is the best way to put it is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been lazy. And I think we can agree, they've put out some hits on occasion. Again, Guardians of the Galaxy was great. Black Panther 2 was very well done, even if it wasn't the most entertaining, but it was, for the context of what they had to work around without Chadwick Boseman, you could tell they really put heart and soul into it, and that's good enough for me. And again, She-Hulk, I know it didn't go over well with most of the crowd, but you know what? It did something different. I respect it, and I'm okay with it failing as long as it did something different. But aside from that, it was lazy, in my opinion. Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that was fine, it was entertaining, but I don't remember much of it because once it was done, it did nothing to further the story other than say, Anthony Mackie, here's the shield. And same thing with WandaVision. I thought, aside from the production value of that show, it did nothing really to progress the story other than be ultimately a prelude to Doctor Strange's movie, The Multiverse of Madness, where she's the villain. It was just her villain origin story. But you know what? It was odd. The first 2 episodes were slow, took forever to kind of get to the point, and by the time the point was hitting, I was watching it out of principle that this was the first Marvel show, I'm gonna give it a chance. If it wasn't the first Marvel show, I wouldn't probably have cared, to be honest with you. And two, they're getting they're getting a little lazy with not tying off loose ends. Like the Eternals, I kind of forgot that movie like a lot of everyone else. I thought some of the best cinematography in the entire MCU, to be honest with you. But aside from that, what about that big hand? But what about that big hand that's sticking out of the ocean and the earth? Because Celestial, or whatever their names were, I apologize, again, I forgot a lot about that movie. But yeah, it left off with this big hand coming out of the earth, and then what? There's been how many properties that have come out that's not addressed that? To me, that's like an obvious, huge thing. It's not like, oh, someone dropped an Infinity Stone on an island and it got covered by sand. Oh, it's gonna be there until we need it again. No, this is a big hand in the middle of the earth going, wow. So that's it. I just think the MCU right now is being a little lazy. But I do hope they course correct because, again, I love these movies. I believe in heroes. There's a part of me that loves them because I grew up with them. But I think right now they're in desperate need of a revamp if they want people to stick to it and love it as much as they did. And remember, if this is going to be the theme of this video, and that is something that we can do in any part of our lives, this is just my advice for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's okay if a movie or a TV show fails. Just like anything in our lives. Anything that we do that fails, make sure you try to do something different rather than copy and paste. Because if you're gonna fail with grace and fail with creativity, because you know what? At least you tried. And people will respect that. With that, that's just my concept on what I do think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is right now. I do think it is in a state of limbo. Tell me what you think down in the comments. I do want to hear what you think. I do like to read comments when I can. I'm trying to get into a place where I will comment to what your comments are. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to review, any questions or concepts you want me to talk about. Drop them down below as well. I'm gonna need some content, especially if I'm gonna do this from here on out. Give me some feedback. I'll talk to you soon. And again, this has been PH.d TV. We'll see you next time.